Hello viewers, welcome to EduTube, your school support educational channel where you can learn and relearn everything. In this series, 50 Commandments in English Language, we dive deep into the essential rules and tips to improve your English proficiency. Whether you are a teacher, a student, or just a native or non-native speaker looking to refine your English skills and comprehensively understand the grammatical technicalities of the language, you are in the right place. Before we delve into today's lesson, if you are new to this channel or you are a returning viewer who has yet to subscribe to our channel, please kindly click on the subscription button below this video to get notified of more academic lessons like this. And if you are a returning subscriber, that is, you are a returning viewer who has subscribed to our channel, we say a big thank you for your love and support always. I'll see you in a moment. Welcome back. So in our previous lesson, we stopped at commandment number 8. So today we are introducing two more commandments, which is commandment 9 and commandment 10. Now what does commandment 9 say? Commandment 9 says that the verb that could succeed or come after being must be past participle, and it further says that you should never use an adjective nor present participle after being. Let's repeat that again. Commandment 9 says that the verb that could succeed or come after being must be past participle, and it further says that you should never use an adjective nor present participle after being. Now, if you remember very well, that means if you watched the previous lesson before this, you will see that the focus was on being, but this time around the focus is on being. Okay, but then as usual, let's try and demystify and analyze the context of the commandment by defining the keywords, by breaking down the keywords. Okay, so the first keyword we have here is adjective, and then we have present participle. Now we've already talked about, or we've already analyzed present participle in the previous video, in the previous lesson. So what we need to look at now is an adjective. An adjective is a part of speech, or an adjective is a word that describes a noun. An adjective simply or basically talks about a noun, give us more meaning, description of a noun. For example, the man is tall. Tall is an adjective, is giving us information about the man. Cinderella is a beautiful princess. Beautiful there is an adjective describing princess. The prince is so handsome. Handsome is an adjective describing the prince. So an adjective is a word that gives a description of a noun, that is, that gives a meaning, that gives details about a noun. That is an adjective. Then for present participle, as we have described in our previous lesson, you could refer to the previous lesson by clicking on the end screen at the end of this video. Okay, so but then briefly, a present participle is a form of verb that ends in ing. Okay, so it's a form of verb that ends in ing. That's a present participle. Now going back to the commandment says that the verb that could succeed or come after being. Being in this regard, being is a present participle of be. It's a continuous form of be. B-E-B, and then when you add ing to it, it becomes being, which is the present participle of be. So any verb that could succeed, the verb that could succeed or come after being must be past participle, and the instruction further, the commandment further says that we should never use an adjective nor present participle after being. Now let's give an example to elaborate that. So the first example we have says that the students are being addressed by the principal. The students are being addressed by the principal. Okay, so now being is our word of focus, is our point of focus. So the students are being addressed. You can see the word addressed. Addressed is a past participle. So as said by the commandment, it says we mustn't use present participle. So the present participle of addressed there is addressing. So that means it would be so wrong to say the students are being addressing by the principal. Now, you even see that sounds really, really ridiculous to use, okay? So that sounds so ridiculous. So the students are being addressed. No, the students are being addressing by the principal, okay? So the verb that must come, the type of verb, the verb form that must come after being must be a past participle or must not be a present participle, okay? So the students are being addressed by the principal. And then the second example we have for the commandment is he is being punished for his offense. He is being punished for his offense. Being, he is being punished. So the verb that comes after being in this case also is punished, which is the past participle of punished. So he is being punished for his offense. And then the third example says that the laptop is being used by mom. Okay, see that again? The laptop is being used by mom. So it would be wrong to say the laptop is being used by mom as commanded by the commandment number 9, that the verb that could succeed or come after being must be a past participle, and we should never use an adjective nor present participle after being. Now, that means if you say words such like the princess is being beautiful, that will be wrong, because beautiful is an adjective, and it's an adjective, and it's expressing a permanent state of something, a permanent beauty of the princess. Okay, so the being there shows that something is continuous, which will be wrong to say. So the right thing to say is that the princess is beautiful, not the princess is being beautiful. And you could see that also that it sounds really ridiculous to put beautiful after being, because beautiful is an adjective. Okay, but then there's an exception. There's an exception to this rule. So the exception to this rule, to this commandment, actually focuses on the adjective part, because the commandment states that we shouldn't use an adjective after being. But there's an exception to this. Now, what does the exception say? The exception says that when an adjective is used only to describe a momentary state or temporary behavior of someone or something, then in this context or in that regard, it is correct to use an adjective after being. Again, let me repeat that exception again. The exception says that when an adjective is used to describe a momentary state or temporary state of something or behavior of someone, then in that regard, it is correct to use an adjective after being. An example, of course, we have some example. So an example is, he is being rude. He is being rude. Rude is an adjective describing the quality of someone. But then in this case, according to commandment 9, it says that we mustn't use an adjective or a present participle after being. But in this case now, we are now using being. We are using an adjective after being. Why is that? Simply because that rudeness is, in that context, the rude there is meant to be a momentary behavior or a temporary description or behavior of the subject. So it is being rude. That means it's not a permanent state. The rudeness is for a temporary time, so it's temporary. Okay, so he is being rude. Okay, so in that regard, that is correct to say. She is being jealous. Jealousy could be a permanent state of someone, a permanent behavior of someone, but when that jealousy comes for a momentary time, or is meant to, it comes in a context where the intention is that the jealousy comes in a momentary state. That means in that regard, if we say she is being jealous, it is correct to also what? Say. Okay, and then the last example we have is the teacher is just being lenient. Lenient is also an adjective. Lenient is an adjective coming after being. We mustn't use an adjective after being, but in this case, the leniency is expressing a temporary state or a momentary behavior of the teacher. Okay, so the teacher is just being lenient. That means it could be for that moment, it's just being lenient for that moment or for that time. So the lenience there is a momentary behavior or a temporary behavior of that teacher at that moment. So according to the exception, again, When an adjective describes a momentary state or temporary behavior of something or someone, it is correct to put an adjective after being. But the general commandment is that you mustn't use a present participle or an adjective after being. The only verb form that you can use after being is past participle. Okay, so that is that for commandment number 9. Now, commandment number 10. Commandment number 10 states that any verb that follows a preposition must be present participle with the exception of to. Again, commandment number 10 states that any verb that follows a preposition must be present participle with the exception of to. Now let's analyze the keywords in this commandment. Okay, we start with preposition. Summarily, preposition is a word that describes or that shows relationship between nouns. For example, the book is on the table. The book is on the table. Okay, so we have two nouns there. We have book and we have table. Then the preposition there is on. So the on is showing relationship between the book and the table. So preposition shows relationship between nouns, pronouns, and other part of speech. So, but then how do you know a preposition? How do you cite a preposition? Prepositions are usually those 2-letter words. They are few letter words. Okay, it could be 2 letters, it could be 3 letters. Sometimes they are usually 4 letters. So they are just short words in part of speech. Okay, so that's preposition. And then so the commandment number 10 says that any verb that follows a preposition must be present participle. Present participle. We've explained what present participle is and in our most recent commandment, which could be around commandment 8 and 7. Okay, so any verb that follows a preposition must be present participle. By the way, present participle verb is a form of verb that ends in ing. So any verb that follows a preposition must be in present participle with an exception of to. So we've had a video about commandments that has to do with to, so you could check our previous video about to. Okay, so now let's look at some examples. My dad bought me a new gaming laptop for passing my SAT exams. Now, if you cite the preposition in that sentence, as we said, that preposition shows relationship between nouns. So the preposition in that sentence is for. So the preposition in that sentence is what? For. And then the verb that follows it is pass, but it's in its ing form, in its present participle form. So passing, for passing. So it'd be wrong to say my dad bought me a new gaming laptop for pass my SAT exam. So the right thing to say is my dad bought me a new gaming laptop for passing my SAT exam. And another example is you can only be made a punctuality prefect by always coming to school early. Now, citing the preposition there is by, and then the verb that comes after by is coming. By the way, always is not a verb. Always is an adverb. Okay, so that's not for today's lesson. So the verb that comes right after by is coming. So by coming, so you could see that makes sense. So if you use come instead, if they had said you can only be made a punctuality prefect by always come to school early, that would be so wrong and it will sound really absurd as an expression. So the right thing to say is you can only be made a punctuality prefect by always coming to school early. And then the third example is the principal pardoned the boy for telling the truth. We have for again as our preposition. The principal pardoned the boy for telling the truth. Our preposition there is for, and then the verb, the present participle verb that comes after it is telling. So that is all for today's lesson. And as usual, if you are new to this channel, please kindly click on the subscription button below this video to get notified of more academic lessons like this. And if you are a returning subscriber, we say a big thank you for your love and support always. I will see you in the next lecture.